Welcome back to the channel, Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're going to be going through our little preview trailer, as well as the new reveals for the Space Marines and Necrons as well. So,
In the darkness between the stars, the weak and the faithless find no deliverance. We are raised to believe that the God Emperor watches over us all. And so we are charged to cleanse the mutant, the heretic, the alien. We must not falter. We are his sword. We are his wrath. Even in the face of death, we shall not submit. Suffering is our prayer. Faith is our armor. In battle, he offers us redemption. And for those who prove worthy, the Emperor sends forth his angels.
Our Imperium is besieged. Across 1,000 worlds, we fight for our survival. Those that would tear humanity down are legion. Our forces are few. Our enemies many. There is no respite. There is no mercy. And in our darkest hour, a spiteful universe awakens forgotten evils to break us. The galaxy burns, yet still we stand, the last bulwark against the terror. And while we draw breath, we will fight. For in this new dark age, there is only war.
welcome back to the channel, Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we got the new reveals from Games Workshop. Not only did they reveal what's coming in the new box set, the starter between the Necrons and the Space Marines, but we also have a bunch of other kits that are coming out as well. I didn't catch all the names on everything specifically, but here we have basically like a light ATV. Looks like it's got a couple of bolters on the front, and then a Gatling cannon on top there. Looks like one of the Primaris guns off of like the repulsor. Basically, it's got the similar look of the bikes, kind of has like the Batman thing going on, and essentially it looks like basically it's the equivalence of the attack bike, They basically just did like a heavy bolter attack bike, but switch it over to like the onslaught Gatling cannon. Just to kind of stick with like the Primaris theme. I'm assuming also it's gonna have extra wounds and probably just your typical biker upgrade toughness. So it's definitely got a lot of potential, as like the Primaris have been missing smaller, durable, quick response units. So depending on how it's pointed and everything, this could be a really nice unit. I'm definitely looking forward to like the diversity being added to the range. Overall, the design is awesome too. This one here is reminiscent of like the old school like tarantula turrets. You basically have a tech marine gunning like a platform gun. This one is like traditionally more of like an anti-aircraft setup, but potentially could just be like an autocannon gun platform. I imagine they will have probably some other ones as well. And again, this is going to look like two of the guns off the Primaris Inceptors. So it's basically like two of their autocannons, the ones that prevent Overwatch, which if it does gain that same ability, could be pretty useful, for like a little static gun emplacement. And who knows what other options they have for like deployment or anything like that as well. And also like what other weapon options, as it may have like more of a heavy weapon, may have more of an infantry killer. Definitely the kit is going to have some cool options, I'm sure. And to see like the Primaris Apothecary is pretty awesome. I did not catch the name on this one. I think it was like the Canoptic Construct or something like that. I can't remember, honestly. There was just so many names. This one looks a lot like the old or like the new Blackstone Fortress reveal for the drones. It looks like the one that like brings back all the little drones to life or whatever. But in that case, for the Necrons, it looks like a heavy weapon, possibly anti-aircraft. This is the new heavy destroyer. Looks pretty awesome model wise. They definitely bulked it up and gave it like a bunch more like of the like meat in the jet engine area. The gun is awesome. I like that they got rid of the green glow rods. It gives you a little bit more like painting options and takes away like kind of like the kiddie feel to it. So I'm definitely liking the new style on it and like more of like the gritty grungy look that they've given to them. I'm not sure about the flying base quite yet, but overall I like it, and I'm always okay for change. Things always seem different at first. This is back to that same Space Marine vehicle again. This is starting with all the stuff that doesn't come in the starter box. So, but once again, definitely has a cool look to it. Definitely fits in perfectly with all the Space Marine stuff. Kind of reminds me of like a little mini Warthog from Halo. Instead of having like the passenger gunner and then the gunner in the back, or the passenger and then the gunner in the back, it has just the gunner in the back. But overall, I like the feel of it. Seems like a little bit more, I don't know, mobile. I know people are complaining about like the ground clearance, but you could just pretend like the the suspension's already compressed. So now here we are into the new set. It looks pretty awesome box set. They haven't given the exact date yet or price point or anything like that, but I believe they said July. And again, I didn't catch all the specific names of all the units in here, but I'm sure it's not going to be hard to find. I may go through and list them off in the comments. Take the time, but it's basically just like a redo of the base Necron range and then expansion with a bunch of new models. And then with the Space Marines, basically all new models. And then the rulebook art looks absolutely awesome. Abaddon the Despoiler versus Guilliman. And I'm guessing they're probably going to have a couple different size boxes again. So this is like the larger starter set box with the core hardback rulebook, and then they will probably have like a smaller version as well, like the First Strike and No Fear type boxes, where you get like smaller amounts of models or just smaller units. Overall, very nice looking box, and bunch of models coming in there. So I imagine the price point is probably going to be like I suspected originally, in like the 240 to like 295 range, American dollars, just because the amount of models that's in there. But it's possible we could see it as low as like 180 to 200, if they really hit us with like a huge value, because they typically like to charge like 2 start collecting boxes and then give you like a couple extra characters basically if they do something like the Shadow Spear kind of setup. So if they did that, your start collecting boxes are like 80 to 100 bucks a pop. So 2 of those would be like 200 bucks, and then they give you the rule book and a couple extra models. But this looks like more than what you would get in the start collecting box. So again, I think it's much more realistic to think we're gonna have like that 240 to 300 range, basically. So, but we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out, and in time, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, it's gonna be right along like their typical value point. Games Workshop is pretty like standard with how they price everything and how they break it down and like the maximum discounts they offer, etc. So typically with these box sets, if you figure like the starter book is 40 to 60 bucks, you're gonna get a nice value out of everything in here versus if you just went out and bought that book. So here we have a breakdown of the Space Marine Primaris. First we have this looks like the captain, I believe. The captain with the storm shields, pretty awesome. And then he's got a power sword. The flipped up visor is definitely a cool look on there. And I thought I saw some kind of options for the backpack little insignia, but I may be wrong. I'm not sure with the easy to build kit. They may have an option or two, or they may just go with like the standard, just mono pose straight up. So. And then here we have the lieutenant. The lieutenant has, I believe that's a phosphor blaster and storm shield. And then we have the chaplain. The chaplain's got his regular pistol and Crozius. Definitely awesome looking model. Kind of gives me like an Iron Hands feel to him with the bionics, but very beautiful sculpt. And if you didn't like that head, I'm sure it'd be very easy to do like a head swap on him and everything, or to like basically like accent the weapon if you wanted it to be like a little more dramatic, or you want it to be like a specific chapter. You could easily change like the insignia head on there, or mix it up a little bit. So definitely conversion possibilities. Here we have this guy. He reminded me of like the Master Executions. I can't remember what they said, but I think he's essentially like the lieutenant version of a chaplain. I'm not sure exactly what his abilities will be or anything like that, but pretty cool looking sword. People are complaining about the flat tip on it, but you could easily cut it down. These are like the veterans, all armed with power shields and storm shield, power sword and storm shield. And then here we have our basically ancient carrying like the standard bearer. Again, very cool model. Definitely like some cool options. The robe is a little bit funky. Something's not quite right about it, but I don't know. Something just jumps out at me as a little strange. But again, very cool model. And you could change up the banner if you wanted like specific insignia or anything on it. I like that they're giving you a bunch of characters. So now looking at these guys a little closer now, it basically looks like they're aggressors with melta guns. Now I don't know if that's some special melta or anything like that, if it's going to have a longer range and be somewhere between a melta gun and a multi-melta. But essentially just the idea of some heavy weaponed aggressor armored dudes is pretty cool, because having them like jump out of a tank or a transport or something like that and pop some shots off could definitely be useful. But I'm not sure if they're going to be able to go in certain Space Marine transports and everything. So we'll have to see exactly how that works out. I know like the aggressor armor is restricted with like the some of the tanks and everything. So we'll have to see how that pans out. I hate to like speculate at this point in time, but with so many different options, you have to just kind of see how they pan out and how the rules pan out, and then go towards what's powerful or go towards what's cool, whatever like your motivation is. But if you try to like pre-meta the meta, it's just not going to work, because there's just too many X factors right now. So, but definitely cool to have extra options, and like according to like how everything's pointed to is going to make a big difference. So. Here we got our hand-to-hand combat intercessors, basically. It's like the Primaris assault squad. Pretty awesome models. Definitely needed in the range. And then here's our bikers we went over already. Again, like the actual models are awesome. I think people are complaining about like the ground coverage, but this guy is pretty awesome. Definitely has a sweet look to him and very eccentric. He looks like the Lord. For the new range, basically. I'm loving that they give you a bunch of characters and a bunch of like sweet different units in the starter box, rather than just like your super basic stuff. I think it'll bring a lot of new players. This guy is basically like I think he's like a heavy destroyer, or I'm sorry, like a immortal character. So he's a beast. I don't know if he's going to be like a lieutenant or what. I have no idea what some of these new Necron models are, but they're absolutely phenomenal. This guy has like no body and basically just like a tail hanging off and like one arm. These are like some little like assistant guys that run around with the character. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but they kind of remind me of the melee Necron guys. So I'm sure we'll see a rebirth of them as well. This guy's an absolute beast. He's got that sweet claw, the giant blade, and an awesome gun. So I'm guessing he's like the equivalent of like the Dreadnought. And these guys look pretty awesome. They're like an elite melee unit. They have two options for the weapons, between like the double or the single big one. Once again, I'm not sure about all these guys. Awesome model, very cool looking, but I'm just not sure like what he does or what he's called. But once again, they expanded the range like absolutely phenomenally, but still kept like the universal kind of look to them. I think this is the same guy where they had the big gun on top, that I was saying is very similar to like the Spindle drones from Blackstone Fortress, like the big construct. So it may have like a couple different weapon options, or they may have like a full kit outside of the easy to build. Here's the Scarab Swarms. They're updated a little bit, look a little bit new, very cool looking. Overall, you know, not a ton they could change here, but and then they basically took it down so like the Necron Warriors and the Immortals are the same now. You just have like the two gun options, and then the art on the rulebook looks awesome. It's nice and fat book, so I'm sure it's gonna have tons more than just the rules in there. Should have a bunch about like all the different armies and everything. And then that's probably like your little campaign book that comes in there with a bunch of like random missions or whatever. Maybe like a little extra fluff, and you know, your like basic stats for all the stuff that comes in the box. Very exciting to see this new box coming out. I'm sure it's going to be a great deal, and it's going to bring tons of new Space Marine and Necron players, and you know, just be a step towards like getting rid of some of these models that have been around for like an eternity. Step for the Space Marines towards like just being Primaris, and you know, obviously step for the Necrons. Here you see like the build sheet and everything. You can very clearly see exactly what is included, and then also, you know, your decals and everything as well. But it's exactly what we were looking at before. You can kind of get a better idea about the sizes as well, because it is hard sometimes to tell exactly where everything falls into place, like with the Necron stuff. So, but great looking box, very exciting reveal. I'm sure it's going to be great for the hobby, and it's going to be great for 9th edition, and you know, essentially like the new release of 40k. I know people are like a little salty about 8th edition not lasting that long, but the truth is they made so many changes over the last few years that they really needed to like consolidate and like kind of like fine tune it all together. After making so many changes and just kind of like piggybacking rule after rule after rule, they needed like a core change to the actual game to keep it simple and fast, and you know, suffering from a lot of like rules bloat and point bloat and everything like that. I think in the end, like, everybody wants to use like every model they own and play like giant games, but the truth is like you're gonna have more fun playing more small games than you are gonna play like just one game that lasts for like an entire day. So in my opinion, it's better for the game. Keeping it like smooth and easy is the way to go. People are going to enjoy it much more. It has much more longevity, and you know, it allows the hobby to be like much more fun. If you think like, oh, I got an hour or two to play a game, like we can squeeze one in, or you know, I've got an afternoon, we could play a couple, you know, versus essentially being like, oh yeah, I got to set aside like an 8-hour block just to play Warhammer anymore, and then that, like, you know, creates like off skirt games like Kill Team and everything, you know, out of necessity rather than like want. So I'm not saying Kill Team isn't awesome, but essentially like Warhammer just got so big that for certain people it's like you can really only play Kill Team because like the size of the games and the size of the table and the amount of time and everything was just like too much. So with like the smaller game boards and the smaller armies and simplified rules, keep the game flowing smooth and fun. Hopefully it will be like the rebirth that we've all been looking for, and kind of simplify everything and roll out the new edition. So, well, there you have it, guys. That's my opinion on everything and my like review of the new units. Sorry I didn't catch all the names and everything quite yet, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of that coming around. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm out of here.